The stars looked different from the bridge of the UES horizon. Commander Jake Morrison had been staring at them for 3 hours now, watching the endless black space stretch out before his ship. His crew was running their usual deep space patrol. Near the Tau Ceti system, far from Earth and far from anything interesting. "Commander, we're getting something weird on the long-range sensors," said Lieutenant Amy Ross from her station. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Jake walked over to look at her screen. The readings showed energy patterns he had never seen before. What kind of weird? It's not a ship or a space station. It's more like a transmission, but the frequency is all wrong. It sounds almost like music. Jake frowned. In 20 years of space service, he had heard plenty of strange signals. Most turned out to be natural phenomena from dying stars or gas clouds. But this felt different. "Put it through the speakers," he ordered. The bridge filled with the most beautiful sound any of them had ever heard. It was like singing, but not human singing. The notes rose and fell in perfect harmony, creating melodies that seemed to touch something deep inside everyone who listened. But underneath the beauty, there was something else. Pain, fear, desperation, compute. "Run this through the universal." Translator Jake said. The ship's artificial intelligence worked for several minutes, analyzing the complex harmonic patterns. Finally, words began to appear on the main screen, translated from the alien music. "Help us, please. Someone help us. We are dying. Our world is dying. We cannot fight. We do not know how to fight. We only know how to sing and build and love. But our sun is killing us. The fire from our star grows stronger each day. Our people are dying. We've tried everything we know. We are not warriors. We're not builders of weapons. We are singers and dreamers and makers of beautiful things. But beauty cannot save us now. Help us. If anyone can hear this, please help us." The message repeated over and over, each time with slight variations, but the same desperate plea. Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. Somewhere out there, an entire species was crying for help. "Where is it coming from?" he asked. Lieutenant Ross checked her instruments. "Zarian system. It's about 40 light years from here, way outside human space." Jake knew that distance well. It would take them weeks to reach that system, even with their best engines. And they had no idea what they would find when they got there. "Any other ships in the area? Nothing human?" "But Commander, I'm picking up something else. There are other signals, much fainter. They're not responding to the distress call. They're scanning it." Jake's blood ran cold. If someone else was listening to that desperate plea, they might not have good intentions. Pirates and slavers were known to prey on weak species, especially those that couldn't fight back. Get Captain Hayes on the come. Priority 1. Captain Lisa Hayes appeared on the screen within minutes. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her brown eyes were alert despite the early hour. She had been sleeping when Jake's call came through. "What do you have for me, Commander?" Jake quickly explained the situation. He played the translated message for her, watching her face grow more serious with each word. "Zarian system," she said when he finished. "Far beyond our patrol area. What's our current mission status?" "It's all routine patrols completed. We're scheduled to return to base in 72 hours. Captain Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Jake could see her weighing the options. Responding to the distress call would mean abandoning their planned route and heading into unknown space. It would mean risking their ship and crew for aliens they had never met. "What does the crew think?" she asked finally. "I haven't asked them yet. But Captain, these beings are completely helpless. They don't even understand the concept of fighting, and someone else is listening to their call. Patch me through to the entire ship." Jake nodded and opened the ship-wide communication system. Captain Hayes' voice echoed through every corridor and room on the UES horizon. "This is Captain Hayes speaking. We have received a distress call from an unknown alien species. They are asking for help with evacuation from their dying world. Responding to this call will take us far from human space into potential danger. For people we do not know, according to regulations, this decision requires crew consensus. All department heads report to the bridge in 5 minutes. The next few minutes felt like hours." Jake watched the stars and listened to the alien song. That continued to play softly in the background. The beautiful, desperate music that spoke of a people who had never known war or violence, who had built their entire civilization around harmony and cooperation. One by one, the senior officers gathered on the bridge. Dr. Sam Carter, the ship's xenobiologist, was the first to speak. "I've been analyzing their transmissions. These beings are fascinating. They communicate entirely through harmonic frequencies. Their language is literally music. And based on the patterns, they're telling the truth about being peaceful. Detect any aggressive undertones in their communication style." Chief Engineer Tony Blake nodded. "Their technology is impressive too. To send a signal across this distance using harmonic waves, they must have incredible acoustic engineering." "But are they worth risking our lives for?" asked Security Chief Pete Wilson. "We don't know anything about them except what they're telling us." "That's exactly why we should help them," said Dr. Carter. "They're completely honest in their communication. There's no deception, no hidden agenda. They're just afraid and asking for help." Lieutenant Ross looked up from her station. "I've been monitoring those other signals. The patterns suggest they're from the Krex Empire. If the Krex are interested in this system, these peaceful aliens are in serious trouble." Jake felt his jaw tighten. The Krex were known throughout the galaxy as brutal conquerors. They enslaved weaker species and strip-mined their worlds. If they were moving toward the Zarian system, the singing aliens were facing something much worse than a dying star. "I've made my decision," Captain Hayes said. "But this is the kind of mission that requires unanimous consent. We're not just risking our ship. We're potentially starting a conflict with a hostile alien empire to save a species we've never met." She looked around the bridge at each of her officers.
Ow.
All in favor of responding to the distress call? Every hand went up. Even Pete Wilson, despite his concerns, raised his hand without hesitation. "Unanimous," Captain Hayes said. "Commander Morrison, set course for the Zarian system. Maximum speed." "Yes, Captain." As the UES Horizon changed course and jumped to faster-than-light speed, Jake felt a mixture of excitement and dread. They were heading into the unknown to help beings who had never hurt anyone, who had built their entire civilization around beauty and harmony. The alien song continued to play softly in the background, a constant reminder of what they were racing to save. Jake didn't know it yet, but that beautiful, desperate music would haunt his dreams for the rest of his life. Dr. Carter was already working on understanding more about the Volani, as the computer had identified them. She was fascinated by their culture and horrified by their situation. A species that had never known violence was about to face one of the most violent empires in the galaxy. As the stars streaked past the windows of the U.S. Horizon, Jake made a silent promise to those distant singers. They had asked for help, and help was coming. Whatever it took, however dangerous it became, humanity would answer their call. The humans of the UES Horizon had no idea that they were about to become legends across the galaxy. They were just doing what felt right, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. The U's Horizon dropped out of faster-than-light speed at the edge of the Zarian system. What the crew saw on their screens took their breath away. The planet below them was like a giant crystal, spinning slowly in space. Massive towers of pure crystal rose from the surface, catching and reflecting the light from the dying star. The entire world seemed to sing with color and light. "My God," whispered Dr. Sam Carter, staring at the readings. "The entire planet is made of some kind of living crystal. It's beautiful." Commander Jake Morrison felt the same wonder, but he also noticed something else. The star that gave life to this world was clearly dying. Solar flares erupted from its surface every few minutes, sending deadly radiation toward the planet. Crystal formations were glowing brighter each time a flare hit them. "Captain, we're getting a transmission," reported Lieutenant Amy Ross. "It's the same harmonic pattern as before, but stronger." "Put it through." The bridge filled with music again, but this time it was different. There was joy mixed with the fear, hope mixed with the desperation. Universal Translator worked. Faster now, having learned the alien language during their journey. "Welcome, Star Singers. Welcome, Sky Travelers. We felt your approach through the crystal song. We are the Volani. We are the children of harmony. We thank you for hearing our call. We thank you for coming to our dying world. Captain Lisa Hayes stepped forward. "This is Captain Hayes of the Earth vessel, Use Horizon. We received your distress call and came to help. What do you need?" The response came in the form of a complex musical pattern that the computer took several minutes to translate. When the words appeared on screen, they painted a picture of a civilization unlike anything humans had ever encountered. "We are 300 million voices singing as one. We are the builders of crystal songs and the shapers of harmony. We've lived on this world for 10,000 years, growing our cities from the living stone, teaching our children to sing with the planet itself, but our star grows angry. Its fire burns stronger each day. Okay, our crystal cities can protect us for a time, but not forever. We do not know how to leave our world. We do not know how to build skyships. We only know how to sing and grow and love." Jake felt his heart sink. 300 million beings. The UES Horizon could carry maybe 10,000 passengers if they packed people into every available space. How could they possibly evacuate an entire planet? "Captain," said Dr. Carter, "I need to go down there. I need to understand how they work, how they live. Maybe we can figure out a way to help them build their own evacuation ships." "I'm reading massive energy signatures from the planet," reported Chief Engineer Tony Blake. "Hey, their crystal technology is incredibly advanced. It's like they've turned their entire world into one giant machine." Captain Hayes nodded. "Prepare a shuttle. Take a small team down to the surface. Commander Morrison, you're with Dr. Carter. I want Security Chief Wilson and Engineer Blake as well." As the shuttle descended toward the crystal planet, Jake watched in amazement as the landscape passed below them. The crystal formations weren't just buildings. They were alive, growing and changing, pulsing with inner light, rivers of liquid. Crystal flowed between the towers, carrying energy from one structure to another. They landed in what appeared to be a central plaza surrounded by singing spires. The sound was incredible, not just heard, but felt in their bones. The entire city was one massive musical instrument, with every building contributing to an endless, beautiful symphony. The Volani who came to meet them were unlike anything the humans had imagined. They were tall and elegant, with skin that seemed to be made of living crystal. Faces were humanoid but delicate, with large eyes that reflected light like prisms. When they moved, they seemed to flow rather than walk, and their voices were like pure music. The leader introduced himself as Ambassador Scifi, through a series of harmonic tones that the universal translator rendered as words. "Welcome, warriors of the far sky. We have studied your transmission patterns. You speak of fighting, of weapons, of things we do not understand. We are curious about your nature." Dr. Carter stepped forward. "We're not warriors by choice. Explorers and scientists. But we learned to fight to protect ourselves and others. We came here to protect you." "Protect," repeated Scifi, and the words seemed to resonate through the crystal structures around them. "This concept is known to us in small ways. We protect our young, our crystal gardens, our song memories. But you speak of protection against other sky travelers? This is beyond our understanding." Engineer Blake was already studying the crystal technology, running his scanner over the nearest building. "This is incredible. They've grown their entire civilization. Everything is connected. Everything is alive. But it's all defensive. I don't see any weapons, any military installations." "We do not understand weapons," said Scifi. "We do not understand military. We are singers and growers and lovers of harmony. When the starfire burns too bright, we sing to the crystals and they protect us. When the ground shakes, we sing to the earth and it becomes still. But we cannot sing to silence a dying star." Security Chief Pete Wilson was scanning the area around them, his military training making him nervous. "This is all very beautiful, but these people are completely defenseless. If someone hostile shows up, they'll be slaughtered." As if summoned by his words, Lieutenant Ross's voice crackled through their communicators. "Commander Morrison, we've got a problem up here. Detecting multiple ships approaching the system. They're not human, and they're not broadcasting any friendly signals." Jake felt his blood turn cold. "How many ships?" "At least 50, maybe. More, they're coming from the direction of Krek space." The Krex Empire. Jake had hoped they wouldn't arrive so soon, but apparently the Volani distress call had attracted exactly the wrong kind of attention. Ambassador ShortStories, Jake said urgently. Other sky travelers are coming. These are not friends. They are the kind of beings who take what they want by force. The Volani leader's crystalline features showed confusion. Take by force? We do not understand. When someone needs something, we give it freely when we need. Something we ask with respect. There is no other way. Dr. Carter grabbed Jake's arm. Commander, they literally don't understand the concept of theft or violence. Their entire species has evolved beyond aggression. They're completely innocent. Which makes them perfect victims for the Krex, Pete Wilson said grimly. The shuttle's communication system crackled to life again. This time, it was Captain Hayes herself. All teams returned to the ship immediately. We've got incoming hostiles, and they're not here to help. As they prepared to leave, Ambassador ShortStories sang a complex melody that their translator rendered as a question. Are you leaving us, Star Warriors? Are we to face the fire alone? Jake looked at the beautiful, innocent being and felt something. Fierce rise in his chest. These people had never hurt anyone. They had built a civilization based on harmony and cooperation. They deserved to be protected. No, he said firmly. We're not leaving you. We're going to prepare to defend you. Can you help us understand your defenses? We have crystal shields that turn away the starfire. We have harmony songs that can calm the angry earth. But we do not understand what you mean by defend. Dr. Carter was already working with her scanner, studying the crystal formations. Their technology is incredible. These crystals can absorb and redirect energy, if we can figure out how to. Work with them, later, interrupted Pete Wilson. Right now we need to get back to the ship and prepare for a fight. As their shuttle lifted off from the Crystal City, Jake looked back at the Volani who had gathered to watch them go. They were singing again, a sad, beautiful song that spoke of fear and hope and trust in the Star Warriors who had come to help them. Back on the UES horizon, the situation was becoming clearer and more dangerous by the minute. The Krex fleet was massive, over 100 ships of various sizes, all heavily armed. Their lead ship was broadcasting a message on all frequencies. This is Admiral Vexstar of the Krex Empire. This system is now under Krex control. All inhabitants will submit to Imperial authority or face destruction. Any vessels interfering with Imperial operations will be destroyed. Captain Hayes studied the tactical display. 1 human ship against 100 Krex vessels. The odds were impossible, but she had faced impossible odds before. Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we need reinforcements at Zarian Prime. Maximum priority. Ma'am, even if they send help immediately, it will take weeks for any ships to reach us. Then, we'll have to hold out for weeks. Captain Hayes looked at her crew, seeing the same determination in their faces that she felt in her heart. We came here to help these people, and that's exactly what we're going to do. The beautiful crystal planet continued to sing below them, unaware that it was about to become a battlefield. The Krex fleet filled the space around Zarian Prime like a swarm of angry insects. Admiral Vexstar's flagship, a massive black vessel covered in weapon ports, moved into position directly above the crystal planet. The smaller Krex ships spread out in attack formation, their weapons already charging. Captain Lisa Hayes stood on the bridge of the UES horizon, watching the tactical display with growing concern. 123 enemy vessels against her single ship. The numbers were impossible, but she had never backed down from a fight in her life. Open a channel to the Krex flagship, she ordered. The main screen filled with the image of Admiral Vexstar. The Krex leader was a massive creature with gray skin covered in battle scars. His forearms ended in clawed hands, and his red eyes glowed with cruel intelligence. When he spoke, his voice was like grinding metal. Human vessel, you are trespassing in Krex space. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. This isn't Krex space, Captain Hayes replied calmly. This is the sovereign territory of the Volani people. We're here to protect them. Admiral Vexstar's laugh was a harsh, ugly sound. The Crystal Singers have no weapons, no defenses, no military. They are not a sovereign people. They are cattle waiting to be harvested. Then you don't know humans very well, Hayes said. Have a saying, come and take them. The Krex admiral's red eyes narrowed. You dare threaten the Krex Empire with a single ship? I'm not threatening anyone. I'm making a promise. If you want to hurt these people, you'll have to go through us first. Vexstar cut the transmission without another word. Within minutes, the Krex fleet began moving into attack positions. Commander Jake Morrison turned to his captain. Ma'am, we can't fight them all in open space. We need to use the planet's defenses. What defenses? The Volani don't have any weapons. No, but they have something better. They have the crystals. Down on the planet's surface, Sergeant Kelly Davis was already working with a team of Marines to establish defensive positions. The Volani watched in confusion as the humans dug trenches and set up weapon emplacements around their crystal cities.
Why do you dig in the ground? Asked a young Volani named Lethera. Why do you point metal tubes at the sky?
Because bad people are coming, Kelly explained as she checked her rifle. And when bad people come, you have to be ready to stop them. But violence creates discord. It breaks the harmony. How can breaking harmony be good? Kelly paused in her work. How could she explain to someone who had never known conflict that sometimes fighting was the only way to protect what you loved? Listen, she said finally. Yeah, sing to make beautiful music, right? But what if someone wanted to stop your singing forever? What if they wanted to break your voices so you could never sing again? Lethara's crystal features showed horror. That would be the end of everything. Without song, we would not be Volani anymore. That's what these bad people want to do. They want to stop your singing forever, so we're going to stop them first. For the first time, Avelani began to understand the concept of necessary violence. Meanwhile, engineer Tony Blake was working frantically with a team of Volani technicians to understand their crystal technology. The massive formations weren't just buildings, they were energy collectors and amplifiers. The Volani had been using them to absorb and redirect the harmful radiation from their dying star. Can you make them work as shields? Tony asked Ambassador Zephi. The crystals sink to push away the starfire, the alien replied. But we do. Not know if they can push away the fire from skyships. Let's find out. The first test came sooner than anyone expected. 3 Krex scout ships broke from the main fleet and dove toward the planet's surface. Their weapons blazed as they targeted the largest crystal city. Shouted Tony into his communicator. The Volani began to sing, not the beautiful, peaceful songs they usually performed, but something new, a harsh, discordant melody that made the crystals glow with fierce light. The energy beams from the Krex ships struck the crystal shields and were absorbed, then redirected back into space. The Krex scouts pulled back, confused and angry. They had never encountered defenses like this before. It works.
Out.
The crystals can absorb energy weapons, but I don't know how long they can hold out against a full attack. On the UES horizon, Lieutenant Amy Ross was tracking the movement of the Krex fleet. Captain, they're spreading out. It looks like they're preparing for a planetary bombardment. How long until they're in position? Maybe an hour? Captain Hayes knew they couldn't win a direct fight, but they might be able to buy time. All hands. Prepare for guerrilla warfare. We're going to make them pay for every inch. The UES horizon dove toward the planet's surface, using the crystal formations as cover. The ship's weapons were nowhere near as powerful as the Krex arsenal. They were precise and deadly in the right hands. Chief Gunner Pete Wilson coordinated the ship's fire with the Marine positions on the ground. When the first wave of Krex attack ships came down, they flew into a carefully planned trap. The human weapons opened fire from concealed positions among the crystals. Krex ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light, but more kept coming. For every enemy ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. They're learning our positions, Pete reported. We need to move. But the Volani had an idea. Ambassador Zephi approached Commander Morrison with a proposal that the universal translator struggled to render into human words. We can sing the crystals to grow. We can make new hiding places for your warriors, but we need to know where you want them. Jake realized what the alien was offering. You can reshape the battlefield. We can sing the stone to rise. We can sing the ground to change. But we have never done this for war purposes. We do not know if it will work. Let's try it. The sight was incredible. As the Volani sang, the crystal formations began to grow and change shape. New towers rose from the ground, providing cover for human weapons. Crystal walls formed to protect evacuation routes. The entire landscape shifted and flowed like liquid. The Kreks had never faced anything like this. They were used to fighting on static battlefields, not worlds that changed shape in the middle of battle. But Admiral Vexstar was not easily discouraged. He sent down heavier ships, armored transports carrying Kreks ground troops. The aliens that poured out of the landing craft were even more terrifying than their ships. They were large, aggressive creatures with natural weapons and thick armor. They moved in perfect formation, showing no fear of death. Sergeant Kelly Davis found herself facing a squad of Kreks soldiers in the Crystal Gardens, where she had been talking to Lethera. The young Volani was trapped behind a fallen crystal formation. Unable to escape? Stay down, Kelly shouted as she opened fire with her rifle. The Kreks soldiers were tough, but human weapons were designed to kill efficiently. 2 of them fell immediately, but more kept coming. Kelly's ammunition was running low, and she was badly outnumbered. She prepared to make her final stand when something unexpected happened. The crystals around her began to sing, not the controlled songs the Volani used for their technology, but something wild and chaotic. The sound was so loud and discordant that the Kreks soldiers stopped their advance. Covering their ears in pain, Lethera was singing not the peaceful melodies of her people, but something new, something angry, something that turned the crystals into weapons. The formations around them began to glow with dangerous light. Energy crackled through the air. The Kreks soldiers screamed as the harmonics disrupted their nervous systems. "How did you do that?" Kelly asked in amazement. "I watched you fight," Lethera replied, her voice shaking. "Saw how you risked everything to protect me. I understood that sometimes. Sometimes harmony must be broken to preserve what we love." The battle raged for hours. The humans fought with desperate courage, using every trick they knew to hold back the Kreks' assault. The Volani learned to use their gifts in ways they had never imagined, turning their peaceful technology into tools of defense. But the Kreks kept coming. For every ship destroyed, every soldier killed, more appeared. The human defenders were running out of ammunition, out of energy, out of hope. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Ross from the UES Horizon, "I'm detecting massive energy buildup." From the Kreks flagship, they're preparing to bombard the planet from orbit. Captain Hayes looked at the tactical display. The Kreks had decided to end the siege with overwhelming force. They were going to destroy the entire planet rather than continue fighting for it. All units prepare for orbital bombardment. Find the deepest crystal caves and take cover. Morrison had a different idea. "Captain, what if we don't hide? What if we make them come to us?" "What do you mean?" "Horizon still has one advantage. We're faster than they are. If we can get close enough to their flagship." Captain Hayes understood immediately. It was a suicide mission, but it might be their only chance to save the Volani. Set course for the Kreks flagship. All power to engines and forward shields. The UES Horizon rose from the planet's surface like an avenging angel, racing toward the massive enemy vessel. The Kreks ships opened fire, but the human ship was too fast and too determined to stop. Below them, the Volani sang a new song, a song of gratitude and farewell to the brave Star Warriors who had come to save them. The UES Horizon raced toward the massive Kreks flagship, its engines burning at maximum power. Captain Lisa Hayes knew this was likely a one-way trip, but if they could take out Admiral Vexstar's command ship, it might buy the Volani enough time for help to arrive. Distance to target, 2,000 kilometers and closing, reported Lieutenant Amy Ross, her voice steady despite the impossible odds. The Kreks flagship was 3 times the size of the Horizon, covered in weapons that could destroy a city. Its main cannon was already charging, preparing to turn the crystal planet below into dust and rubble. "All power to forward shields," ordered Captain Hayes. "Prepare for ramming speed." But just as the Horizon closed to within 1,000 kilometers of the enemy ship, something impossible happened. Space around them filled with blue light as dozens of ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, Captain. shouted Lieutenant Ross, staring at her sensors in disbelief. It's the Earth's fleet. Admiral Rachel Stone is here with the entire 7th Battle Group. The massive dreadnought UES Defiant appeared directly between the horizon and the Krex flagship. Behind it came cruisers, destroyers, and assault ships. The Earth reinforcements had arrived just in time. Admiral Stone's voice filled the horizons. Bridge through the communication system. Captain Hayes, this is Admiral Stone. Stand down and return to defensive positions. We'll take it from here. The space battle that followed was unlike anything the Volani had ever seen. The humans fought with a combination of tactics and fury that shocked even the warlike Krex, where the Krex relied on brute force and overwhelming numbers. The humans used precision strikes and coordinated attacks. Colonel Frank Miller led squadrons of dropships through the enemy formation, targeting Krex command vessels. His pilots flew with reckless courage, weaving between enemy fire to deliver devastating attacks. Commander Ashley Moore coordinated orbital strikes from the Defiant, her weapons finding weak points in Krex armor that their own gunners had missed. Every shot counted, every missile found its target, down on the planet's surface. Sergeant Kelly Davis watched the space battle through the crystal formations that had become her fortress. The young Volani Lithara stood beside her, still amazed by the humans' capacity for both violence and protection. Your people fight like the songs of storms, Lithara said, watching human ships dance between Krex vessels. It's beautiful and terrible at the same time. We fight for you, Kelly replied simply. That's what makes us dangerous. What? But the Krex were not defeated yet. Admiral Vexstar had been fighting wars for decades, and he knew how to adapt. He pulled his ships into a defensive formation and began targeting the human vessels with concentrated fire. They're learning our tactics, reported Commander Morrison from his position on the horizon. We need something they can't adapt to. Adapt. Sam Carter had been working frantically with Ambassador Scifi and a team of Volani technicians throughout the battle. They had discovered something incredible about the crystal formations that covered the planet. Commander Morrison, get me a direct line to Admiral Stone, Dr. Carter called out. I think we've found something that can turn this battle. The communication came through moments later. This is Admiral Stone. What do you have, Doctor? The Volani crystals aren't just defensive. They're part of a planet-wide network. If we can coordinate with them, we might be able to do something the Krex have never seen before. Explain quickly. We're taking heavy casualties up here. Dr. Carter looked at Ambassador Scifi, who began to sing a complex harmony that the universal translator struggled to render into human words. The crystals can focus and amplify energy from multiple sources. If we coordinate our ship weapons with their harmonic frequencies, we can create a resonance cascade that will disrupt Krex electronics. Admiral Stone was quiet for a moment, processing. The implications. You're talking about turning the entire planet into one giant weapon. Not a weapon, corrected Ambassador Scifi through the translator. A song of protection. Harmony that shields the innocent and confuses the violent. Can it work? Asked Admiral Stone. Only one way to find out, Dr. Carter replied. The coordination required was incredible. Every human ship had to synchronize their weapon frequencies with the Volani crystal network. The aliens had to sing in perfect harmony across their entire world. The timing had to be exact, or the cascade would fail. Engineer Tony Blake worked with Volani technicians to link the human ship computers with the crystal network. It was like trying to teach a machine to sing, but somehow they made it work. Ships, this is Admiral Stone. Prepare for synchronized firing sequence. Target the Krex command frequencies on my mark. Across the planet, 300 million Volani began to sing. Not the peaceful melodies they were known for, but something new. A song of defiance, of protection, of harmony, weaponized for the first time in their species' history. The crystal. Formations began to glow with increasing intensity. Energy flowed through the network like blood through veins, building power, focusing intent. Mark, shouted Admiral Stone. Every human weapon fired at once. The energy beams struck the crystal formations and were amplified 1,000-fold. The focused harmonic energy spread out from the planet like a wave, washing over the Krex fleet. Effect was immediate and devastating. Krek ships began to spin out of control as their electronics failed. Communication systems went dead. Weapon targeting systems shut down. The ordered Krek's formation dissolved into chaos. "It's working," reported Commander Moore from the Defiant. "Their entire fleet is dead in space." But Admiral Vexstar was not finished. His flagship had better shielding than the smaller vessels, and he still had control of his main weapon. In a rage, he targeted the largest crystal city on the planet's surface. "I cannot have this world, no one will." He roared over the communication channels. The massive cannon on his ship began to charge. Dr. Carter watched the energy readings with growing horror. "That weapon will crack the planet's crust. It will kill every Volani on the surface." Hayes looked at the tactical display. The Horizon was the closest human ship to the Krek's flagship. They could intercept the beam, but the ship wouldn't survive. "All hands, prepare for emergency maneuvers," she announced over the ship's communication system. "We're going to block that cannon." "Captain, that's suicide," protested Commander Morrison. "Maybe, but it's what we came here to do." The UES Horizon turned and accelerated toward the Krek's flagship just as Admiral Vexstar fired his main weapon. The energy beam was meant to destroy a planet, but instead it struck the human ship that had placed itself in the way. The Horizon's shields held for exactly 3 seconds before failing completely. The ship's hull began to buckle under the incredible energy assault. But those 3 seconds were enough. The Volani had not been idle during the space battle. They had learned something new about their abilities, something that changed everything. Lithera and her fellow young Volani had discovered they could do more than just amplify their existing crystals. They could grow new ones, fast and strong. As the Krek's energy beams struck the horizon, massive crystal formations erupted from the planet's surface. They grew at impossible speed, reaching up toward space, absorbing the deadly energy that would have killed the human ship. The beam was redirected, focused, and sent back toward its source. Admiral Vexstar's flagship was struck by its own weapon. Amplified by Volani crystal technology, the massive ship exploded in a brilliant flash that could be seen from orbit. The rest of the Krek's fleet, already crippled by the harmonic cascade, began to retreat. Without their admiral and flagship, they had no stomach for continuing a fight they could no longer win. The battle was over. The Volani were safe. On the heavily damaged U.S. Horizon, Captain Hayes surveyed her wounded ship. They had come close to losing everything, but somehow they had won. The peaceful Crystal Singers had learned to defend themselves, and humanity had gained powerful new allies. "Dr. Carter," she called out, "how are our new friends doing?" The xenobiologist was monitoring communications from the planet's surface. The Volani were singing again, but their songs had changed. There was strength in them now, confidence. They had faced their greatest fear and survived. "They're different now, Captain. They're still peaceful, still harmonic, but they understand that sometimes you have to fight to protect what you love." Ambassador Zephyhi's voice came through the communication system, translated into words that carried the weight of a species transformed. "Thank you, Star Warriors. You have taught us that harmony and strength can sing together. We are no longer just the children of Crystal Song. We are the children of Crystal Song who know how to protect our music." The Volani had learned to be strong. The humans had learned that some things were worth any sacrifice. Across the galaxy, the news was already spreading. A new alliance had been born. One that would change the balance of power among the stars. 6 months after the battle at Zarian Prime, the crystal planet looked very different. Where once there had been only singing spires and peaceful gardens, now there were also human-built structures integrated seamlessly with the Volani crystal technology. The two civilizations had learned to build together, creating something neither could have achieved alone. "Commander," Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the new orbital station that circled the planet. Through the transparent walls, he could see Volani crystal ships, impossible vessels that grew rather than being built, working alongside human cargo vessels to transport evacuees to safe worlds. The dying star still burned in the distance, but it was no longer a threat. Human engineers and Volani crystal singers had worked together to create massive energy collectors that absorbed the harmful radiation and converted it into power for both species. "The evacuation is proceeding ahead of schedule," reported Dr. D. Sam Carter, joining Jake at the observation window. We've moved over 50 million Volani to new colonies in human space, but many are choosing to stay and help with the reconstruction. Jake nodded. He understood why. The Volani who remained had been changed by the war. They were still peaceful, still singers of harmony, but they had learned that peace sometimes required strength to defend it. "How is the memorial coming along?" he asked. Dr. Carter smiled. "You should see it. The Volani have created something incredible to honor Captain Hayes and the crew members we lost." They took a shuttle down to the planet's surface, landing near the site where the heaviest fighting had taken place. Where once there had been crystal gardens damaged by weapons fire, now there stood something magnificent. The memorial was a living crystal formation that grew in the shape of a human ship, the UES Horizon. But this was no static monument. The crystal ship sang with the voices of the Volani, telling the story of the humans who had answered their call for help. Ambassador Scifi met them at the base of the memorial, his crystalline features showing the wisdom that came from surviving a war. "The song tells of beings who came from a world so dangerous that it taught them to be strong," he explained through the universal translator. "But their strength did not make them cruel. Their power did not make them conquerors. Used their gifts to protect those who could not protect themselves." Sergeant Kelly Davis approached from the other side of the memorial, where she had been training a group of young Volani in basic defensive techniques. The aliens were learning to use their crystal technology in new ways, not as weapons, but as tools of protection. "The young ones are quick learners," Kelly reported. "They understand now that being peaceful doesn't mean being helpless." Lithera, the young Volani, who had first learned to sing aggressive harmonies during the battle, had become Kelly's most devoted student. She approached the group with the flowing grace of her people, but there was something new in her movements. Confidence, purpose. "Sergeant Kelly teaches us that strength and gentleness can exist together," Lithara said. "She shows us how to be guardians of harmony, not just singers of it." Changes went beyond the Volani. The humans who had stayed to help with the reconstruction were different too. They had learned from the crystal singers that cooperation could achieve more than competition, that harmony could be more powerful than discord. Engineer Tony Blake had become fascinated with Volani crystal technology. Working with their best technicians, he had helped develop new ship designs that combined human engineering with crystal growth techniques. The hybrid vessels were faster, stronger, and more efficient than anything either species had built alone. "At this," Tony said, showing them his latest project, "we've grown a ship that can repair itself, adapt to different environments, even improve its own design over time. The Volani call it a learning ship. But the most important changes were happening on a galactic scale." News of the battle at Zarian Prime had spread throughout known space. Other species had heard how humans risked everything to protect aliens they had never met, how the peaceful Volani learned to defend themselves while maintaining their nature. Lieutenant Amy Ross, now promoted to commander, brought the latest intelligence reports to the group. "We're getting contact requests from dozens of species. Some want to join an alliance with Earth and the Volani. Others are asking for protection from aggressive neighbors. Some are worried about us," added Colonel Frank Miller, who had been reassigned to help establish the new joint command structure. The Kreks weren't the only predator species out there. "Word is spreading that humans are dangerous to those who threaten innocent civilizations." Dr. Carter pulled up a holographic display showing the local galactic region. Red dots marked hostile species, blue dots showed potential allies, and yellow dots indicated neutral or unknown civilizations. "The balance of power is shifting," she explained. "For the first time in centuries, the predator species have to worry about someone fighting back effectively." Ambassador Scifi studied the display with interest. "And the prey species no longer sing alone. They know that if they call for help, someone may answer." 3 weeks later, representatives from 12 different species arrived at Zarian Prime for the first Galactic Protection Council meeting. The gathering included the crystalline Volani, various human delegations, the aquatic Myrthani who had been terrorized by Krex raids, the plant-like Grudeva whose worlds had been strip-mined by the Zephyrian Empire, and others. The meeting was held in a new structure that combined the architectural styles of all the attending species. Human functional design blended with Volani crystal artistry. Rthani water features and Grudova living walls that purified the air. Admiral Rachel Stone. Now the Earth, representative to the Council, addressed the Assembly. We're not here to create an empire or force anyone to join us. We're here because we believe that civilizations should be free to develop their own way, without fear of conquest or destruction. But freedom requires vigilance, added Ambassador Zephi. We have learned that peace must sometimes be defended with strength. It's the aquatic Myrthany, representative, speaking through a water-filled translation device, expressed concerns shared by many smaller species. How do we know that the humans will not become like the Kreks? How do we know that your strength will not corrupt you into conquerors? Commander Morrison, who had been invited to speak about the human perspective, stood to address the question. Guess. We've been where you are, he said simply. Humans spent thousands of years fighting each other, conquering each other, destroying each other. We learned the hard way that real strength comes from protecting others, not dominating them. We learned that the strongest civilizations are built on cooperation, not conquest. He gestured toward the Volani delegation. These people taught us something important. They showed us that it's possible to build a civilization based entirely on harmony and cooperation. We showed them that sometimes that harmony needs to be defended. Together, we're stronger than either of us could be alone. The Grutova representative, massive tree-like being whose voice sounded like wind through leaves, posed another question. What happens when the next crisis comes? What happens when species disagree on how to respond? Dr. Carter had been thinking about this problem for months. We've developed a system based on consensus and voluntary participation. No one is forced to fight. No one is forced to contribute resources they can't spare. But when innocent civilizations are threatened, those who can help have a moral obligation to try. The discussions continued for days. Species shared their histories, their fears, their hopes for the future. Slowly, the framework for a new kind of galactic community began to emerge. The final agreement was signed in a ceremony that combined the traditions of all participating species. Humans provided written documentation. Volani sang harmonic contracts that resonated through crystal matrices. Myrthany performed ritual water sharing. And Grutova planted seeds that would grow into living reminders of their commitment. As the various delegations prepared to return to their homeworlds, Commander Morrison found himself back at the memorial to Captain Hayes. The crystal formation had grown larger, incorporating new elements that told the stories of all the species that had come together. Lithara joined him at the base of the singing monument. Do you think Captain Hayes would be proud of what we've built? She asked. Jake listened to the crystal song that told the story of humans who had answered a desperate call for help, never knowing that their actions would inspire a galaxy-wide movement toward cooperation and mutual protection. I think she'd say we were just getting started, he replied. Above them, the stars shone with new possibilities. Across the galaxy, species that had lived in fear for centuries began to sing their own songs of hope. At somewhere in the deep reaches of space, predator civilizations were learning that the balance of power had permanently shifted. The age of unchallenged conquest was over. The age of protected peace had begun.